Welcome to the first episode of Children's Books and Summaries. The first book I will be doing a book summary on is Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. This is a nonfiction book. If you use Accelerated Reader, which is AR, this is a 4.1 book, which is meant for fourth grade to eighth grade, and it is worth 1 point during the AR quizzes. If you use Lexile scores, this is 690L, which is intended for ages 7 to 10 years old. The information that I have on here on this first slide is going to be kind of like a breakdown of the information regarding its intended audience, the publisher information. I do have the links in there as well, including the IBSN number. So you can actually look this up here for yourself if you are interested in purchasing the book. I do have a bookshop where you can actually purchase the book through my bookshop page, which not only helps me earn a commission, but it also helps local bookstores. Now, these slides are going to contain information on the prologue, the 9 chapters, the epilogue, and then at the very end of the book are paper crane instructions. So for the prologue, I didn't actually do a slide for the prologue because it does give you basically a short summary of what happens to Sadako. So we're going to jump right into chapter one. Chapter one is called Good Luck Signs. It goes from pages 9 to 14. What I intended this summary to be is kind of like a homeschool mini lesson. I am not an educator, so if there's information missing, please let me know so I can include it for my next book summary. I did put on here, if you look at the first left-hand top block, it's going to have what I would consider vocabulary words to look into. I do have parts of speech that they could practice or they can kind of like read and like, oh, this is a simile, whatnot. This is an example of. There is a picture, so it's easier to kind of visualize what is going on in the scene. Chapter one is specifically about the morning of Peace Day, August 6th. We are introduced to Sadako's siblings, Mitsui, Masahiro, and Aiji. I had to look that up to make sure that I was pronouncing that correctly. There is a mention of Oba-chan, which is the grandmother who died during the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. I did put on there that when you read the book, and they say like Sadako-chan, or when you meet other characters where they have chan at the end of their introduction, it's a term of endearment, so it means little or dear. And a lot of people use it for small children, close friends. I also put information here about the tatami mat because this is a good way to kind of branch out, kind of like cultural information. If you are a non-Asian person reading this, you can look it up and see what those are. I did find a link to some history of the tatami mat that you can also click on to get more information on. So basically to summarize this first chapter, Sadako is very excited um, for this. It's kind of like a memorial celebration of Peace Day. So they are going to do ceremonies and rituals to honor those who unfortunately passed away from the atomic blast in Hiroshima. So this is specifically to Hiroshima, not Nagasaki, which was the second atomic bomb drop in Japan. They do their morning prayers and then they basically head out. So everything is confined just to the household and the family. Going into chapter two, it is called Peace Day. It's pages 15 to 20. Once again, I put on here information like for vocabulary words. I found several links to the locations that they are going to. Now, Peace Park, it's kind of like it gave me several different kind of locations because there's lots of Peace Parks all over the world. But I did find information on Hiroshima, on Peace Park, and the Ota River, where they're going to end up going, where they release the paper lanterns. So if you're familiar with the paper lanterns, right, it's kind of like a little ritual that they do to in honor of the in memory of people that have passed away, right? We're also introduced to Chisuko, which is Sadako's best friend, and they actually talk about the atomic blast. Now, Sadako herself, she was actually born during the time that this blast happened. And you read about how she calls it the thunderbolt. Um, I don't want to give too much away from the story, but she was alive when this happened, and that'll come into play a little bit later. Obviously, if you heard about the story before, you know what happens to Sadako, but for right now, this is just kind of giving you an idea of what chapter 2 is going to be about their Peace Day ceremonies. And then it's also talking about the other things that they do, kind of like in celebration in memory of the people that have passed away. Because after they do their ceremonies and rituals for the paper lanterns, they do have kind of like booths where they are able to get food and all this other stuff. I also put on here these some quotes on there to kind of give you an idea of how she was feeling that day. And then let's see. So now we go into chapter 3, Sadako's secret. It is mentioned in the first chapter that Sadako really is a good runner, and one of the things that she wants to do is to qualify for the race team in junior high, right? That's a big thing for her. I also put on here that at this point, Sadako's secret, this is autumn now. So this is past Peace Day, and this chapter goes from autumn to New Year's. I apologize. She is training to qualify for the junior high race team. And I also put some important quotes there from the chapter as well. And there wasn't too much in this chapter because there's a lot more vocabulary in here that I think it would be good for children to kind of look up, understand what it means, probably use in a sentence to kind of get, you know, be able to write new sentences with words that are more describing when it comes to certain events. Um, the temple bells in here is something that I wanted to highlight because that's what happens near the end of the chapter because it is New Year's. So on New Year's, the bells ring to basically find a way to leave all the negativity in the past year and bring all the positivity into the new year. And then, of course, there's two pictures there. Now we go into chapter 4, which is didn't get too much information because this is where the story kind of goes into a more kind of serious tone. We have a few vocabulary words. It is now February, so this is, 2 months after New Year's. She's taken to the Red Cross Hospital, which she associates very negatively because of the what they call the atomic bomb sickness. So, um, after the blast happened in Hiroshima, there wasn't really a lot of treatment for people who developed atomic bomb disease, or in this case, leukemia. And we are also introduced to her doctor, Dr. Numata and nurse Yasunaga. And these are basically the people who are going to be there for her treatment. Um, Basically, in chapter 4, you realize that even though she's training hard enough, and obviously, if you train hard enough for a certain event, there might be signs that, like, maybe you're overworking yourself too much. But at this point, she begins to have dizzy spells. And these have gotten so badly that they have to take her to the hospital to basically have her checked out at. And this is where she finds out that, yes, she has the atomic bomb sickness. Going into chapter 5, pages 33 to 39, once again, we have our vocabulary words here, and we see that her best friend um, is one of her first visitors, and she tells her the story of the crane. And the two pictures here perfectly show that visit right there, because her friend folds a gold paper a crane, and she tells her of the story of the cranes, that if you were to fold 1,000 paper cranes, then the gods will grant you one wish to make you healthy again. So she made her the first one, and throughout the story she keeps that very first crane, the gold one that her friend made for her, near her on basically her nightstand, and she brings it with her. Later on, you'll see that she is allowed to go home for a special festival, kind of like home visit, and that'll be in the later chapters. Chapter 6 is probably something that I would prepare your kids for if they haven't really dealt with any kind of death in the family. This is where we meet Kanji. This is page 40 to 47. Now, this child that she meets, who is also there because of the atomic bomb of sickness, who's obviously been there for a lot longer, she meets him. Um, he's very depressed at this point because he's been there so long. He has only one surviving relative, which is his aunt, who is very elderly, so she can only visit him once a week. So he spends most of his time alone. And she felt so sad for him that she made him a a giant paper crane. And unfortunately, at the end, by the end of the chapter, Kenji unfortunately passes away. So that's just one thing to prepare your kids for if you read the story. They do mention Star Island, and I was trying to find the folklore around Star Island, and but I couldn't find too much on it. I'm gonna have to try to research a little bit to see what is the lore behind it, because it sounds like it's like they're trying to say, like she was trying to make a point about did he go to heaven? The first few searches that I was able to find points to Japanese mythology about two star-crossed lovers. So I wasn't sure if that was the same thing or if they were just using that name. Um, but yes, this one was a very difficult chapter to read because as you could tell by the photos, it perfectly juxtapositions basically how her mood changes from somebody who's positive, because at this point you find out she's also made over 300 cranes. And then for the next one, this is where you see that the sickness is getting to her, right? Going into chapter 7, Hundreds of Wishes, pages 48 to 51. So her class was able to get her one of these dolls, which is called a Kokushi doll. By this time, it's June. So this is a huge jump from the last timeline that we were on. There is a poem that is on page 51 that her mom tells her. And at this point, she's had over 500 cranes made. I put on here that her parents brought her this furoshiki bundle, and basically it's like a box lunch, but this is what it looks like, so your kids kind of have like an idea of what it looked like. At this point, she is a lot more depressed because she seems like she gets better, sometimes she doesn't, and she understands that something like this, like the furoshiki bundle that they brought all her favorite foods, it's an expensive thing to do. So she was starting to feel bad that her parents were going out of their way to do all this stuff, and she wasn't getting any better. And it's not, it's kind of those things like, I know my parents don't have this kind of money to be wasting on food that I can't even eat, because she can't even eat at this point, a moment either. Chapter 8, The Last Days, pages 52 to 59. Once again, you have your vocabulary words. It is now July. She's allowed, this is the home visit, and it kind of coincides with the Oban holiday, which is likened to the similar holidays of Latin America when you do Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. It's a special festival to honor the people that have passed away. Um, when she is home, she has basically a dream, and that's what page 54 is showing you right now, that there's somebody there, right? I don't want to give too much away because it is a great story to read. And then lastly, I'll talk about IG's gift, because throughout the story, you hear, I think it was at the beginning of the story, I apologize, where her and her mother talk about, because she's the oldest, that they always wanted to get her a kimono because at her age, she should have a kimono. So her mother, all this time, has been working on a kimono, a silk kimono with cherry blossoms on it, and they finally give it to her and she puts it on. And yes, chapter 9, Racing with the Wind. Um, so this is the part of the story where unfortunately she passes away. I put one of the quotes on there from one of the last pages on there. She only was able to create 644 paper cranes. Her brother was hanging most of them all over the ceiling, which is another thing that that you would read in one of the earlier chapters. So they were swaying in the wind when she was looking up on them before she finally closed her eyes for the last time. Now, there are a few things that I would talk about here in the end, and this is just some more information. The epilogue is only one page, but it tells you what happens after her passing, and it involves her schoolmates and actually the city. There is a statue of her, or a statue memorial for her in Japan. There is actually also one in Seattle, which, according to this third article link here, let me see if I can highlight this. Oh, no, it's not going to let me highlight it. So this one here, unfortunately, this is an article saying that the statue of her that was in Seattle was unfortunately stolen, but it was basically another memorial statue in her honor. Um, the video link on here, it showcases the memorial statue that is for her in Peace Park, which is in Japan. The second link is for more of the story of Sadako, kind of like in depth. Now, when I was doing the research for this book review or this book summary, chapter summaries, um, I actually found that there is another author who actually did the same story, but this book is rated at a 7.4 on the AR scale, and it is still recommended for middle grades 4 to 8. So this is for definitely advanced readers in fourth grade because the AR points are a 3. It's still nonfiction, and then if you're using, like I said, the Lexile measure, this is a 1010L. Ages range from advanced readers at 10 to 17. And it is a larger, slightly larger book, but not too much larger. I actually need to find this book to see what is the bigger difference. I have seen some preview pages, so this book, once I get my hands on it, I will do another book summary on this one because it does look like it has a higher vocabulary, and then I can do a review on that as well. Um, I apologize if this book summary isn't as eloquent as I wanted it to be, but this was one of the stories that I read in elementary school. So I was in fourth grade when this book was read to us by our classroom teacher, and it stuck with me all this time. Um, I hope that you are interested in reading this book. It is definitely a book to read when you think of cultural history that is not always apparent in American history classes from any age group, basically, because this shows the damaging effects of World War II. Because people in Hiroshima, the survivors of Hiroshima, because she mentions it's in chapter 2 that although she likes the Peace Day activities and ceremonies, right, doing, honoring the people that unfortunately didn't make it through the atomic bomb. Um, she talks about how it actually scares her to see the survivors who escaped the atomic bomb, but they were burned so badly that they scarred them. And those people always, she was always in fear of them because it really showed that's how scary it was to think about that they survived such a massive event. Um, and it's just one of those things like people are still feeling the effects of was it necessary to do such a thing? And it definitely wasn't. It definitely wasn't. But um, thank you so much for listening to me. If you are interested in purchasing the book yourself, I do have it in my bookshop. It's in the second line because I will be doing other book summaries, but it'll be on like textbooks and stuff that I've read. I wanted to do this one first because I thought this was a really important book to showcase for others who have not even read this book yet because it is a very popular book. But thank you so much for listening.